This is the 3-pod aluminum compact travel tripod, or so they say, and I'm gonna tell you why in this video I'm actually not keeping this tripod. If you're like me, and you like the design of the Peak Design travel tripod, and you saw my other video on why I didn't keep that tripod, then you may have been searching for something similar, because the Peak Design travel tripod, I really like the design. I like the leg system. I like how compact it is. So I was looking for an alternative, and I thought I found it in this 3-pod version. And as you can see, it looks very similar. It has the same kind of non-tubular leg design, very similar to the Peak Design model. The center tube, although it's not quite rectangular, triangular is what I meant. The Peak Design travel tripod center column is triangular to make the legs fit better. The center column on the 3-pod, even though it's not round, it's still round-ish. It's hexagonal, it's 6-sided, but the legs still fold up quite compact around it, so it makes this tripod a lot more compact than something like my KNF Concept S210 tripod. This 3-pod just fits better in the hand. But I'm gonna go over some of the similarities of the 3-pod versus the Peak Design tripod, and go over one glaring feature that's making me send this back with less than a month of use. It's still in new condition. They'll take it back because the problem that I have with it is not very obvious, but it's something that's definitely going to affect how stable your shot is. Now, I'm not going to talk about the Peak Design travel tripod a lot because I don't have it anymore. I sent it back as well. But right off the bat, again, this one is larger. It is taller than the Peak Design travel tripod. It is heavier. This is a little over 4 pounds. The Peak Design travel tripod is about 3.8 pounds or so, the aluminum version anyway. But of course, the carbon fiber Peak Design travel tripod, being much more expensive, is a lot lighter than either of these. But I mainly picked this up because of its similar design and because of its price point. The legs alone usually go for about $130. And if you get the legs, of course, you'll just get the legs with no ball head. I'll talk about this in a sec. But you'll also get, you know, a nice travel tube for the tripod to go in when you are traveling. And of course, you get a little Allen wrench and user manual in there. Nothing else in the tube. Wait, I take that back. There is something else in the tube. You get apparently a fairly cheap smartphone holder, which I just realized was broken on arrival. So, you know, I don't use these that much, but apparently that was broken when it arrived. But what do you get for a budget product sometimes? Hang on. And it does fit in its bag with a ball head attached, and it has 2 little Velcro straps right there and right there to help, I guess, hold it in a little more. Maybe if you wanted to leave the top open and carry it around, you could get to it a little more quickly, and when you're ready to pack up and leave wherever you're photographizing, you can pack it up. I kind of like mine that way. It's a little more comfortable for me. Excuse the cat here. But otherwise, it's a good quiver. So again, the legs typically go for about $130, and they are well built, and they feel really sturdy. They're nice, they're thick, the joints are nice and stiff enough to hold their position. You do have those leg locks, which you can release and get the legs into, I think, 3 positions. So there's the first position, but of course you wouldn't be able to put that on the ground unless you raise the center column. So we'll look at that. Fairly low to the ground, and that sits at about 16 inches to the plate, again, without a ball head. Next step up, 23 inches to the plate. Next. There at the leg's most vertical set with the center column extended. You can't see me. We are at 27 3/4 inches in this, and if we drop the center tube, we are at about 15 3/4 inches with the legs in their kind of standard first position with that center column all the way down. But you can take out the center column. It has a wing nut. You loosen that there, and that's what raises and lowers it. You can pull it out, and right here, there's a little push button, and that push button actually keeps it from coming out when you don't want it to come out. If you want to pull it out, press that, and you can pull out the center tube. Although there's no way to attach anything here because there are no threads. and you can't just take the top of this off and put it here. So you can't do much with the legs in this mode. All you can do is take the center column and push it back up through like that. And then of course you could mount your camera underneath and get that real low to the ground shot with your camera mounted on the bottom of the center column in its inverted position. This isn't my favorite position because it usually takes a long time to change your tripod around to this. This one's fairly quick because it just has that little push button. You push it, you pull it out, you flip it. So at least the flipping of the center column is quick on this particular tripod. But again, there is no way to mount a ball head here so you can get that really ultra low shot without the center column. So even if we spread these out, it doesn't do us any good. We can't mount anything right there. The wing nut for extending and locking in place the vertical tube obviously sits between these two legs, but in between each other leg, you do have an additional 1/4-20 mount right there and right there that you can use to mount other devices to the tripod, like a small friction arm and maybe an external monitor. Although those holes are recessed just a bit behind this kind of top plate here, so it's harder to get in larger items like the end of this tilta arm. It won't really fit very well without hitting that top plate, so you may want to stick to more narrow attachments like this mini friction arm where the 1/4-20 bolt sticks out a little further, and that fits in there very nicely. The top plate on the center column has a 3/8 bolt standard, but you can just unscrew that and flip the bolt around. The other side of the bolt has a 1/4-20 bolt on top instead of 3/8, and you can just screw that back down. And now you have a 1/4-20 bolt instead of 3/8, so you don't always have to use an adapter. And now you can just mount any 1/4-20 device you need right there on top. All right, on to the leg extensions. Now, these have clasp locks, and I actually really like clasp locks most of the time. And these are fairly loose. They mostly slide out when you want them to. I will say though, these particular clasp locks have pinched me more than once when I was closing them. They really got my hand one time, and I was not happy about it. So be careful of that, but they do lock fairly well. We'll go ahead and drop the rest of them here. Ow! See, it got me. It got me. This is the only tripod that I've used with clasp blocks that have pinched me that bad. And when the tripod is in its most extended leg position with the center tube all the way down, it stands at 54 inches and it goes up to 66 inches. So actually fairly tall for a fairly compact tripod. Pinched me again. When folded up, it is about 17 inches without a ball head. Now, as I mentioned, the legs alone usually sell for about $130. I got mine on Adorama, but for some reason, they had a deal going where if you get it with the ball head, the whole kit is only $90. So there was no point in getting the legs for $130 when I could just get the legs and the ball head together for $90. And the ball head it comes with is good. You know, it's got large knobs, although they are the round style knobs. I prefer wing nuts on the ball heads. It's just easier to grip and tighten down when you have wing nuts, at least for me. So that's just a personal preference, and it has an Arca Swiss plate on top. Got a little plate right there, Arca Swiss clamp, standard 38mm dovetail style. You know, it's a decent ball head, and it does have a pan only function. Hang on. So once mounted, obviously the larger knob controls, you know, how the ball head is oriented. Once you lock that down, you do have your standard pan lock. You can unlock that and then just pan the ball head as it sits on the tripod, so you can get panning shots, obviously, if you want to do that. The center column does just have a hook right there. It feels plastic. The legs and the center column are made from aluminum, so that's what gives this thing a little bit of weight, but that can be good depending on how light you need to be when you travel, because you have more stability out in the field with a little bit heavier of a tripod. And overall, I wasn't going to use this for backpacking. I was going to keep it in my car, keep it around the house, because it is, you know, relatively slim when it's all folded up. But let's get on to that one problem, and the main reason I'm sending this thing back, aside from it pinching me every now and then when I clasp the locks, Let's look at the feet. All right, so what is my problem with this tripod? And I'll tell you right now, it's these feet. You might think, well, those look okay. They've got a nice flat bottom. They have a hinge on them, so they angle to whatever surface you're on. But let me show you how this works in real life. So if you are on a flat surface and you have the tripod there, it's pretty good. You can see the feet here. They kind of, again, they'll level out to where you are. And when you're on a hard surface, it works fairly well. But not everyone puts their tripod on a hard surface all the time. It's almost like the people that designed it didn't try this on carpet. Let's go over to some carpet. So you might think that these self-leveling legs would work just the same way on carpet, but if we put this on carpet here, let me show you what happens every single time. As soon as you put this on carpet, watch the feet. They just want, no matter how you put this thing down, you can see at least one of the feet every time goes in this vertical position where instead of sitting flat like it's supposed to, it just wants to pop up on the ends of that. And it doesn't really matter even if you set it down. This one in the back this time is now up on its kind of spike, but it's not really a spike. It's not meant, as far as I can tell, as a 2-foot type of system. It's just meant to try to level out to your flooring. But when you put it on soft surfaces, again, like carpet, these feet, instead of sitting flat, they want to go up like that. And you might think, okay, we'll just put them all up on those spiky parts instead of the flat part and it will work. The problem is that every single time you put it down, one of the feet ends up on top, and that just makes the whole thing kind of have this jump or wobble, because if one foot is up on its spikes, the others might lean, and when you try to put that one foot back on, the other two will rock on to their spiky parts. So it's really hard to get it level on carpet. I'll just try it a couple of times randomly. Here we go. Let's get it in the camera there. There, that one landed on its spike, and you can see I'll just wiggle it a little bit and it just doesn't want to sit flat. And right here, if I just give it a little bit of pressure, it jumps. A tripod shouldn't jump to a different foot position just because I'm putting a little lateral force on it. But these feet just constantly do that. Try it one more time, fresh, come in, put the tripod down, spin it around. And again, this foot is up on its spike. These two are flat. We'll try it one more time. We'll flatten out the feet. We'll put it down. And now all three of them on their spikes, but it's still not stable that way. Just because they all landed on their spikes, it's a bit random and it's not stable. Let me get this to height and put a camera on it and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Put a ball head on here real quick. All right, so if we find ourselves, we've planted this tripod and you can see at least two of the feet, actually all three of the feet again, are kind of on their noses where they're not supposed to be. And again, we think, well, maybe that's how it's designed, but I don't really think it is, because if you just move it a little bit, if you've got a camera on top of here, and I'll hit record on this camera, it just doesn't feel very stable. And in a moment's notice, I found that one foot may want to sit flat. So let's try to put all three of them flat. And it's really hard to get all three of them flat at the same time. I really just can't do it. And even when I tried, this one over here still wanted to pop up on its toes. But again, if we try to put all three of them on their toes, these two are actually on their toes, while this one at the back is on its foot. So there's no rhyme or reason, and you can't just set the feet to be one or the other. You're stuck with this shaky, wobbly foot structure, and the whole point of having a tripod is to keep your camera steady. Is it not? And I just find that with this tripod, nothing feels steady. It always feels like it's going to jump a foot here or there. You can't actually set it down and know that it's stable. You may set it down, think that it's stable, you go to grab the camera and one of the feet jump into its alternate position when you don't want it to, and your footage is ruined. So it kind of just doesn't even serve, for me, the basic point of having a tripod. It's very well built, the legs are nice, the aluminum construction gives it a little bit of heft so you feel a little more secure with your camera on top. It goes up to about 5.5 feet, which is taller than most of the other travel tripods out there. The center column moves up and down smoothly and feels secure when you lock it in place with its wing nut. The leg clasps, even though they pinch me at times, do feel very secure when they're locked. And that leg's not going anywhere. The additional 1/4-20 mounting points are nice, but those feet just not wanting to stay level on a simple surface like carpet means this tripod is just not very good for my needs. So that's why this one is going back. You may want it, and hopefully I've shared enough information about this to where you can make the decision yourself. The ball head it comes with, if you buy it with the ball head, is fine. You can always choose your own ball head. But again, if you find that deal where the legs and the ball head are cheaper than the legs alone, I would get the package. I would watch out for those legs pinching your fingers. And I just don't think this foot design is very good. So I'm sending it back. And hopefully one day I'll have the gumption or just the willingness to spend that much money on the Peak Design travel tripod again. That one is a good tripod. I just don't think it's perfect enough for me to add to my arsenal, but neither is this one. That's the 3-Pod Wander. I'll leave it up to you. Hopefully this was helpful, and see you later.